And I think that the distinction is salary savings. That is, to me, that's a big distinction. Pam, did you want to
I just
comment on
wanted
the
to
rules?
comment, too, that typically what we consider to be a carryover from one fiscal year to the next is something that's been specifically approved by council and for whatever reason was not able to be purchased during that fiscal year, which is typically capital or a software package or something that's very specific that was itemized in the budget and for whatever reason didn't make it through the process and get completed for a variety of reasons. Those are things that we consider to be a carryover request, something specific that council approved that didn't happen that we need to carry over to the following year. These types of requests is not something that we have processed in the past.
And those were project specific.
Project specific or capital specific.
We were not able to accomplish in that fiscal year that you authorized us to carry over. And so those were projects that were actually specific projects that were funded. And then I want to say too now, and I've been around a long time, but it didn't matter whether it was salary savings or operational savings. You didn't touch it. It was carried over, and it supported fund balance. Salary savings or operation, it did not matter in all of my years until the last few years.
Right, last few years, correct. So that's what I'm asking. Without making an exception to juvenile court in this end of this fiscal year, is there a way that we can proceed and then close the doors to go back to the policy that you've had in place over the years? Has anybody taken? I know we have to vote on it, but I'm just putting it out there. I'm looking at it's June 21st. It's $70,000, and we've used others have received their go-ahead to do what they need to do. And I'm reading here, it says construction costs, converting space allocated juvenile drug court into a second juvenile courtroom and a second judicial conference room. Has anyone taken a look at what they're requesting and how they intend to construct the area?
We have had an architect meet with them because there will need to be drawings and permitting in our facility just like we require for any business in Columbus. So they have met with the architect to explain to them what they want. For $70,000, they're going to have to really scale down the request. There's no way for $70,000 that a complete courtroom can be constructed in the area that they want to construct it in. So it will have to be a very small version of what their actual request has been.
Okay. Has that discussion been had with them?
The preliminary discussion, they did meet with the architect, and they've been having that discussion about what they want, and then the architect's going to provide what they feel can be done with $70,000, which will not be a lot.
Well, and I want to say too, I mean, Councilor Thomas raising the question gave me an opportunity to express my concern. However, they need the second juvenile courtroom, and I don't mean to sound contradictory, but this is something I do recommend. They need the second courtroom. I mean, juvenile court is very busy. I mean, they're very busy, and this is something that goes back to when Judge Allen, John Allen, was Superior Court judge. I mean, we were put on notice way back then that they needed the second courtroom. So it's something that has been needed. I mean, so I can say to you that it's needed. I support it. You can always delay it for another year, but it's something that we're going to have to do. We're going to do it now, or we're going to do it later. But you read the newspapers, you don't see all of everything that goes on related to juveniles, but they're busy. And
Mr. City Manager, we have a lot of counselors lined up.
Say one last thing. Yeah, I've been to several of their events and things, and as the city manager said, it's very much needed. And I just ask council to please look at this as being something at the last time around and that we need to close the floodgates going forward. But juvenile court, in my term here, they've never basically asked for anything they didn't need that I know of. Thank you.
All right. And I think the question is, you know, everything is so desperately needed after the years we've been through. Could it be funded some other way? And I know we don't know that until we get into the year, but, you know, will there be other monies that we find because we've had unexpected revenues come in or unexpected savings, and that's usually how we take care of some of these most urgent needs. So I just throw that out as we continue discussion, because we have extensive discussion here. I think we have 5 or 6 or 7 counselors in queue. Counselor Davis.
And Counselor Thomas, I really appreciate you bringing this up, because over the weekend I shared your exact same thoughts. Mr. City Manager, I'm 100% in agreement with you. As long as I've been up here, that's the way that I perceive it. That's the way it's been. And when you're dealing with a lot of priorities in the government like we are now, mainly there's matters with employments and appropriate compensation from that standpoint. You got an issue of benefits coming up. You've got budgets that have been balanced basically on no capital replacement. There's been matters over the past years that we've had to tighten things up just to get where we're at. And now all of a sudden, it somewhat worries me that everybody perceives that we have a little extra money. Well, I'm concerned just because of the fact that what I'm approving up here, I question what's being presented to me, if it's appropriate or not, from a line item standpoint in budgets across the board. I also question, from a standpoint, Madam Mayor, I question, you know, we've talked about this several times. I'm not a big fan of the concept of budget neutral. I'm not, because it leads to other, I guess, actions that consequently where we're at right now. I question from budget ordinance requirements. Is it appropriate? Because we've talked about one of the, you go in there and look at one of the sections, and it talks about the appropriateness of bringing requests to this body, and the matters of finances and keeping accounting of finances at the same time. So, yes, I'm concerned. So I share the same concerns that my colleagues do as well. You know, whether we need this or not, I mean, I'm, you know, from a standpoint of being a judge on this, I'm not going to sit here because I don't have enough information on it, but I don't like the process. I'm concerned about that. And some people have talked about public safety. I go back to talking about prioritizing. We've got a lot of issues there that we're trying to deal with and trying to address on a limited budget. And, you know, with the things that are on the horizon, if we don't start, if our priority is not trying to build up the reserve and get it back where it needs to be, then we're going to continue to deal with these kind of things every year. So you can only do so much. You use it today, you're not going to have tomorrow to essentially deal with some of these issues, mainly like compensation and benefits. Those are high on my priority list, and we're going to have those discussions where you think the funding comes from to deal with those matters, right here, what we're talking about. So you got to somewhat look at the big picture overall and how, number one, the functionality of how we have budgeted over the years in the process, and then two, where we're at in the prioritization of where we're going in the future and what we're trying to accomplish as a government for the city, for the citizens of Columbus.
All right. And we continue on with Counselor Baker.
No, thank you. And I know they have some grant funding, or all these local funds, or is this?
This is general fund.
It's our general fund money. And nobody's against the juvenile court. They do a wonderful job in a difficult spot over there, and we're all in favor of them, but no offense, but you can't do this. I mean, you can't. Our budget is closed out. We've adopted the budget. You can't come in and say, oh, a department has found $70,000 in savings, and they want to pull it out, bypass the budget, and earmark it for 2017. There's not a process for that. The city manager would need to come back at some point during 17, say that he's found a worthy construction project, and he's found a funding source for it. That's the process. I don't see how there's a process for this. no offense, but I don't understand it. Thank you.
Let's see, we've got the Mayor Pro Tem.
You know, one of the things I think precedence has been set by doing this, not from salary savings, but every year, when the sheriff's budget was overrun, we take savings from every other department and apply it to the sheriff's department. And that's not fair to the other departments, but that's what we've been doing for the last, I don't know how many years, but for quite a while.
So-
Okay. Let's see, we've got Counselor Henderson.
Well, and just to tag on, Councilor Baker already made the point I wanted to make, and that is that as much as I agree that the juvenile court and juvenile drug court need this money, although there hadn't really been a presentation made to justify this, other than the fact that we've known for years they've needed it. To me, because we've got another request, I understand, coming up, and it's actually going to compensation, and I'm not going to support that. And I don't know how I can support that, not support that one, and support this one. So to me, I agree with Councilor Baker. I think the proper way to do this is that we close this out. The $70,000 goes back into the general fund. Now, if at mid-year, this comes back and this is the most worthy project that is on the books and that we have an opportunity to address, then we'll address it and use the regular process to try to do that. So that's I'm not going to support this, just because I don't think the process is correct.
Well, Madam Mayor, if I may, let me just withdraw it, and I'll figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll figure it out.
Okay. All right. Which means, of course, because I don't want the citizens to misunderstand that, which means that there won't be any appropriation unless council approves it, obviously. We don't figure things out, and I know you didn't mean this, but some folks can interpret it incorrectly. We don't figure things out that are appropriated that council doesn't approve. So that just means he's going to work with the juvenile court to see what other options there are, and we can come back at another date. Councilor Thomas.
And please don't anyone misinterpret what I think the conversation around this table has been. It's not that we don't think that a second courtroom and conference room is necessary in the juvenile court setup. It's this process that is concerning to me. And I'm even more concerned since Deputy City Manager Hodge said $70,000 is not going to be sufficient for what they really need. And so I would certainly suggest to the city manager that as you're looking at this to try to figure it out, that if we're going to do this, we do whatever is necessary to give them the facility that they need. Don't build them a $70,000 inadequate courtroom if you're going to be looking at it, look at it to see what they need and how much is it going to cost and where is the money coming from. I think that that's not an unreasonable request. Thank you.
Let's see, Councilor Davis.
And let me add that nobody said this, but there's going to be some emergency requests.
Yeah.
There's going to be some emergency requests. And that's what we're talking about here. And having that reserve and having the process, I agree with you. I'm totally 100% in agreement with the process here. But, you know, when we're looking at increasing the days in the reserve, there's going to be, every year there comes up some kind of emergency request, and it's going to come back. And this is the money we're talking about, right here.
Okay. All right, that concludes it. Mr. City Manager, thank you, and we know. Oh, thank you for keeping track of that, Tiny. Okay. Such a good discussion, we forgot. All right, Mr. City Manager.
Next, I've got donation of voting equipment from Adams County, Colorado. We're requesting approval to accept the donation of voting equipment. It's valued at $700,000.
We've got a motion and second for approval. Is there any further discussion related to this item? Seeing none, you may vote electronically. The item passes.
And we spoke with you at the last business meeting about the Fall Line Trace River Link preliminary project, and we're asking your approval, or asking you to authorize a preliminary project approval for the Fall Line Trace River Link that provides the opportunity to expand our trail system through a public-private partnership. We've got funds through the special purpose local option sales tax for the trail. We had not expended all of those dollars, and we've got $2.4 million still there, and we're asking you to allow us to proceed forward with the project as was presented at the last meeting.
We've got a motion for approval. Is there a second? Okay, we have discussion with Councilor Thomas.
Mr. City Manager, this says that it would be funded by the SPLOST. And did I understand you to say this is the funding for this will come from the SPLOST that originally authorized the Rails to Trail?
That's correct.
And that was a
Was it 1999?
99 SPLOST?
1999, yes.
And there is this 2.4 million is still in that SPLOST account that can be used for this,
That is correct,
and for nothing else?
and for nothing else. Now, of course, when I say or nothing else, if we close out the project and there's money left, you can use it to enhance projects, you can use it to retire debt, and so when we say nothing else, it is for and was for this project. And of course, the project was originally scheduled to go from the Civic Center to CSU, and to CSU to Salmon Road and to Flat Rock. We got the project from Salmon Road, CSU, down to 10th Avenue at the Medica Center. And then we took the roadway to get you down to the river, and of course the Riverwalk would get you to the Civic Center. This link would get us from the Medica Center at 10th Avenue, close to Tarberton Road, where it ends, on down to the Riverwalk.
I just wanted to be sure that this is money that has been allocated through the SPLOST.
That's correct.
It can't be used, for example, to buy copy paper for
That's
the
correct.
city manager's
Can't be used
office.
for personnel expenses or to buy
Any of those
operational
kinds of
supplies. It's for the construction of the Rails to Trails project that I just outlined for you, and these are dollars still in that account.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Councilor Davis.
Mr. City Manager, I'm glad you clarified that after the discussion we just had. But it's all, they've saved a lot of money on the Rails to Trails. There's a lot of things that just didn't transpire over time, and money's still been there, and still the ability to use it is there. I remember at council, when this was all presented, we all kind of were a little concerned, because we're like, you got to be kidding me. The trail's stopping there, that's going to stop? I mean, it's a trail to nowhere, right? That's pretty much what the conversation was around the council table with the council members. And it wasn't really the city's fault. It had a lot to do with the medical center, and I think there was the rail yard there that was there, and there was some other agreements made, and there was just at the time, really, it was hard to figure out which way to go. But today, we have an opportunity to finish that, not only finish it, but connect it to the Riverwalk. To me, that's completing the Fall Line Trace.
Yes.
And I think it's going to be a good thing for the citizens, because finally we can all put that matter to rest, that it was a trail that just ended in the middle of nowhere. So I appreciate you clarifying that.
Sure.
All right. Were we on discussion, Madam Clerk? Did we take a vote, or we were still on discussion? Okay, we had a motion, and we had a second, and we have further discussion from Councilor Garrett.
Just one question. I believe Councilor Allen asked last week about project maintenance, and I don't foresee any issue with that, but just so our constituents know, will there be any issue with funding project maintenance for this?
Well, I don't anticipate in this case any issues with project maintenance. It's going to be a 12-foot wide concrete pathway for the most part, and it would be area that we would otherwise be weed eating or mowing, and when you replace that with concrete, it reduces the amount of mowing or weed eating that would be required, and so it would not require any more maintenance than we are doing today, and likely less maintenance.
Okay, great. Thank you, City Manager.
Yes.
All right. That concludes discussion. The item is queued for electronic voting.
Yes.
It passes.
I've got some purchases. First, for the Columbus Police Department, 3D laser scanner system for crime scenes. It's $63,200. We're asking your approval on this item.
Okay, we've got a motion and second for approval. The item is queued for voting. It passes.
Next, I've got flatbed dump trucks. These are replacement vehicles.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve items B, C, and D, which is flatbed trucks from the Georgia statewide contract, safety equipment from the annual contract, and Chevrolet Tahoe two-wheel drive police pursuit vehicles pursuant to the Georgia state contract. Was that a second, Mayor Pro Tem? Yes, okay. There being no discussion, please record your votes electronically. Those items pass.
And last on purchase agenda is a relocation of Georgia Power in-place facilities.
I believe you skipped E, excuse me, software.
Okay, yes. Nancy wouldn't want me to do that. The software license agreement for voting equipment, and let me just say that $40,000 of this came from a grant from the Community Foundation, and we want to recognize that and thank them for that. And so the $21,700 will be spread over fiscal year 17.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and second. There is no discussion. The item's queued for voting. I think we're missing one. There we go. All right, and it does pass.
And then I've got relocation of Georgia Power in-place facilities. They need to relocate in order to accommodate the extension of the city's fiber optic cable that we're trying to get to the fire station out on Macon Road.
Okay, we've got a motion and second for approval. Councilor Thomas with discussion.
I just have a question, Mr. City Manager. Does this pretty much complete that fiber optic network and hooking up all of our satellite locations, if you will?
Well, when you say all of them, I'm going to defer to, I've got my IT director and deputy city manager here.
This is actually the connection to Fire Station 9, and so that will connect.
Which is the one out?
The new one.
The new one
off of, Macon Road.
Macon Road, okay.
And then we're continuing that connection up to Cargo and Transport out on Chautauqua Road. So this is the first leg. And then we're working to continue to connect the fire stations and the police precincts so that we'll create those hot spots for the RMS project. So this will not complete it. This is the first location.
This is the first location?
Well, we've done locations that were already on our network, but this will be the first fiber connection to this fire station, and then we'll continue to the other fire stations.
Okay, because I know that some of our stations do have connection.
Right, if they were already on our network.
Yeah. And why don't we let
And I'll let Forrest.
Forrest come in on that?
Yeah, I think the question you ask is really two different answers. One is this is the city-owned fiber piece that Pam talked about that's going to run out to Cargo and connect up. What we have now is we're actually paying a vendor to be connected back. So this actually will ultimately result in a cost saving. So all the fire stations are connected except Station 9 with a fiber network, some of it city, some of it we are paying for monthly. And we're trying to actually get to a point where the city owns the fiber networks and therefore would ultimately reduce the cost.
Great, thank you. Thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
City Manager.
And so, that item is, did we? Oh, okay. I will wait just a moment and come back to that.
Well, and Madam Mayor, I'll go ahead and call up Marsha Quorum with the jury manager. She has a fiscal year 16 jury manager additional funding request.
All right. Hello?
Hello? After all that, I don't really want to come up here because what you're going to tell me. I do have a letter, and if you'll forgive me, I left out a word in this letter, and I just noticed it just a minute ago, so, and it's probably one of the worst letters I could have left out. Do you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll forgive you. Yes.
I call myself reading it. Would you like me to wait, or just go ahead?
Oh, I'm sorry. What's your
Well,
pleasure, Mr. City Manager?
I actually thought he would be back by now. Why don't I just call up
Okay.
our finance?
Why don't we call up our finance
Finance,
update? And
yeah.
I think they are, we've
Just give
sent
us
some
a
folks
second.
after him,
Okay,
so I think
sure.
they're just taking a quick break.
Well, he's on his way.
Oh, okay.
Okay, here we go.
I have some more if you don't have enough.
Okay. Did we want to take care of the Georgia Power relocation item?
Yes, ma'am.
The relocation of Georgia Power lines in place of facilities? We had a motion and second, didn't we, Madam Clerk? Yes, we did. Okay, so I'm going to cue it for voting. If you all would indicate your votes electronically. And it does pass. All right, now, Mr. City Manager.
Okay. Mrs. Quorum?
Okay. Madam Mayor, City Manager, and council members, in response to the overage of the Jury Manager's office, I am requesting supplemental appropriations of $35,000 for fiscal year 2016. The amount requested is to cover pettit jury fees related to larger than normal jury trials. I do not have, and I left out the not, have any control over when the judges set down special settings for jury trials. Thank you for your consideration.
We have Counselor Davis.
Well, ma'am, this is somewhat of what I just said, emergency request. I mean, it's somewhat, you got to do it. You don't have a choice.
When I started work with the Jury Manager's office, which was in 1982, we had 3 Superior Court judges, 1 state court judge, the probate judge, and the municipal court judge. Now we have 7 Superior Court judges, 2 state court judges, of course, the municipal court, probate court. We have 11 courts now, and if those, and now the probate court a lot of times doesn't set jury trials, but if any of the Superior Court judges set down special settings, and we've been having a lot of murder trials, and they've been lasting at least 2, going into 3 weeks. And I don't have any say-so when they set down a special setting, so I have to have the jurors ready for them. So that throws me off my budget. I have to
It
have,
just
I
sounds
just
like you're
don't have
dealing
any
with,
control over it.
right, you're dealing with the trickle-down effect, so you just.
Yeah, I just do what they tell me to do.
Okay. All right. That concludes discussion. Did we get a motion, Madam? No, we don't have a motion. So we do need a motion. Okay, we've got a motion from Counselor Davis. Is there a second? Okay, Counselor Henderson? Yes.
I'll second it, but where is the money coming from?
Well, I think what you're going to have to do is allow them to exceed their budget, and then when we get ready to
Reconcile,
it'll come from one of the departments, obviously,
where there's savings.
where there's savings.
Yes, which is why it returns to the
Which is
general
what
fund.
we do
Mhm.
when that happens, as the Mayor
Right.
Pro Tem alluded to a little earlier.
So this is actually just what the jury manager has done is come to us as we have asked in the past through resolution. If you're going to exceed your budget, please let council know. Okay.
And now it did give me a little more money next year, so hopefully I won't go over it next year.
So that's what you're
So, okay.
actually doing.
All right, we have a motion and second then, and there's no further discussion, and the item is queued for voting. It passes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor Pro Tem?
But clerk, I like to vote yes on that, vote on this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And I really just want to thank Ms. Coren for, I mean, that's, if you're going to exceed your budget, you need to come here and
Come
do just
forward.
what you did.
Right.
So,
You
thank
know
you
I
for
didn't
doing
want to. No, I'm just kidding. I just don't like to.
All right.
I don't want to go over my budget, so I won't have to come here. That's the main thing. Thank you, I appreciate it.
And so, next, we're going to go ahead and call Ms. Nancy Boren, Executive Director of the Board of Elections, or Elections Office.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to give you an update on the runoff information that will occur on July the 26th. You have in front of you, of course, the PowerPoint presentation. There are 3 districts that will be in the runoff on July 26th. It is the Congressional District 3 on the Republican side. There will be School Board District 1 and School Board District 7. If you do not live in one of these 3 districts, you will not be eligible to vote on July 24th. The voter registration deadline remains the same as the deadline for the May 24th primary, and that is April the 26th of this year, so you have to have been registered by April the 26th. If you do live in Congressional District 3, but you voted a Democratic ballot in the primary, you will not be able to vote in this election. If you did not vote, though, on May 24th, and if you live in one of the 3 districts having the runoff, you will be able to vote in this election. I know it sounds confusing. The following precincts will be completely closed on Election Day, and that is because they are not in Congressional District 3, nor are they in School Board District 1 or 7. And that is the National Infantry Museum, Faith Tabernacle, St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, Salvation Army, and Salmond Road Recreational Center. So if you live in any of those 5, you will not be voting for the runoff. The following precincts will be open for all voters, whether you voted Democrat, Republican, and if you are in Eddy Middle School, you will vote in one of the school board districts. If you are in First African, one of the school board districts, and Edgewood Baptist Church, you will also be voting for the school board. So it doesn't matter whether you voted Democrat or Republican. If you want to go vote on the runoff day, you can vote. All right, there are 6 precincts in which everyone lives in Congressional District 3. And those 6 precincts are Britt David Church, St. Peter, Cornerstone, St. Mark, Winbrook, and North Highland. Of course, there's a but. If you voted Democrat in the primary, you will be unable to vote in the Republican runoff in these 3-6 districts, in these 3-6 precincts. All right. Then we have 12 precincts in which some of the voters are eligible to vote because some of the voters live in some of the districts. So if you vote at Winton Church, some of you live in School Board District 7, and you will be able to vote in the School Board District 7 runoff. If you vote at the Columbus Public Library, which is the old Carver precinct, You will vote in School Board District 1 if you live in that district based on your address. St. John Church will be School Board District 1, and that's, again, only for a portion of the voters in that precinct. Columbus Tech is School Board District 7 for a small portion. Casita Road Church, School Board Districts 1 and 7, but again, not every voter in that precinct, only those that live in the district. Mount Pilgrim Church, School Board District 1, Fort Middle School, School Board District 1, Rothschild Middle School, District 1, and Gentian or Reese Road LDS Church is District 1. All right. St. Paul, if you vote there, only a small portion of St. Paul is in Congressional District 3. But again, if you cast a Democratic ballot in the primary, you will be unable to vote in the Republican runoff at St. Paul for District 3. Epworth Church is the most confusing of all of our precincts because they live in Congressional 3, School Board 1, and School Board 7. So if you voted Republican in Epworth and you live in Congressional District 3, you will have a selection of the ballot that you can receive. You can either receive the Republican ballot that will have the Republican as well as a school board race on it, or you can choose just to vote the nonpartisan school board race. That's the only precinct in which they will have a choice of the ballot that they would like to receive. And that's because it's in the center of town, and that's where all of your district lines kind of converge in that Epworth precinct area. Gallup Center is School Board District 7, again, just a portion of the voters in that School Board District 7. Now for the easy part. Early voting will start on Tuesday, July the 5th. We will be open from 7 a.m. till 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday only. So any eligible voter will be able to cast their ballot during that time. There will be no Saturday or Sunday voting during this runoff. The last day of early voting will be July the 22nd, and we are currently mailing ballots to those who qualify for those automatic ballots, the disabled, the elderly, and the military. And I see glazes over your eyes, but I just wanted to give you an update to know who will be voting on July in the runoff. Any questions?
Let's see. Yes, we have questions. We have Counselor Thomas.
Ms. Bourne, if someone's eyes are glazed over, as mine are, and they want to ask someone,
Yes.
who do they call, and how do they get in touch with someone to find out where they vote and if they vote?
They can certainly call the elections office. Our number is 706-653-4392, but perhaps a better way to do it, if you have access to a computer, is to go to My Voter page. You can pull up My Voter page. It will give you a sample ballot. If you are not eligible to vote, you will not have a sample ballot, and it will say that information is not available for you. You can look at that sample ballot, and it will show you the districts that you are in, and it will name all the way down from congressional district to school board district, the districts that you're qualified for to vote.
And for the ease of some of those folks out there, if they call 311, can they ask to be transferred to the elections office?
The 311 Center actually is a great partner of ours. They have been trained in our voter registration system, and they can do a lookup. So they participate. We couldn't do it without them answering voters' questions. So voters can also call 311, and they can access on their voter registration system that they have on their computers.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry, we have Counselor Huff.
No questions. Great presentation. Hope everyone understood. I just wanted to go back a few minutes back when we had to vote. If the council has not, I just happened to go by her office to ask a few questions, and she showed me all of this new voting equipment. It's something for your eyes to feast on, that all of this equipment was donated to us, all of the newer machines and things of that nature, and it's just outstanding. I just wanted to mention it because I
Thank you.
She mentioned it to me, and I asked to see it, and she took me back to show me, but just the fact that someone thought enough of Director Boren and her office to donate that to Columbus.
Thank you.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem?
Ms. Bowen, do we by chance have an estimate on how much the runoff is going to cost?
This runoff, because we have 5 precincts that are closed, should not cost as much as a regular runoff. So we're looking at about a $60,000 fee for the runoff in July.
And that was already budgeted?
Yes.
Because
Okay.
it's next fiscal year. That's next fiscal year, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, it
It'll be
will be
FY
next fiscal
17.
year in July.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy, I'm glad you understand it.
Well, and Madam Mayor, we will run this we'll pull it out of this council
Yes.
session and run it on CCGTV, and we'll make sure we have it on the website as well.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
I'm going to call Angelica Alexander for the finance update.
Okay.
Hello again.
Hello?
What you have before you is a monthly financial snapshot. This is something new that we're doing. If you look to the left side of the snapshot, at the very top, you'll see a pie chart. It's a summary of our general fund revenue. This pie chart represents the revenue collected for the major revenue types that are listed, which comes to a collective total as of May 2016 of $135,910,997. To right below the revenue section, we have the general fund expenditures listed by department. You'll see there are some departments that are highlighted in yellow. At this particular point in the fiscal year, the expectation as far as what departments would have expended is approximately 91.66% of their fiscal 16 budgets. For the departments that are over that 91.66 percentage, those are the ones that are highlighted. Starting with the city attorney's office, with regards to the litigation budget, we're defending over $12 million in claims. As it relates to the IT department, we had to pay our annual fees for software, particularly the Microsoft lease agreements. As it relates to the employee benefits, our annual contribution for death benefits and major disability were paid, and so we pretty much expect that to be where it is at this particular point in the fiscal year. The next department we have is the jury manager, and you know, she just came up and requested additional funds, and that is primarily due to the subscription at the beginning of the year for the jury summons, as well as the pettit jury fees. And then there's the public defender, which is due to the monthly contract that we pay the state for our public defenders. We pay that in advance. So those are the departments that are beyond the 91.66% expectation. If you look to the right of the snapshot, you'll see that there's a listing of the current fiscal year revenue when compared to prior fiscal year revenue for all of the operating funds. In the general fund, we're up 0.21%. For the other local option sales tax fund, we're down 0.91%. For the stormwater sewer fund, we're up 1.40%. In the paving fund, we're up 2.21%. In the medical center fund, we're up 2.15%. Integrated waste is up a nominal 0.08%. In the emergency telephone, our E911 fund, that's down 2.51%. In our economic development authority fund, we're up 3.12%. Our debt service fund is up 5.73%. Our transportation fund is down 3.04%. Our parking management fund is up 32.42%. Trade center fund is up 16.36%. This is comparing May of 2016 to May 2015. Bull Creek fund is up 2.67%. Oxbow Creek is down 1.76%. And the Civic Center fund is up 76.55%. Below the summary for the funds in regards to the revenue, there is a breakdown, a further breakdown of the other local option sales tax. It breaks out the public safety portion, which is the 0102 fund, and then it also breaks out the infrastructure side of that, which is the fund 0109. So this pretty much is just a snapshot of what you have on ECAP. There is more detailed information on ECAP if you wanted to drill down into what these numbers represent. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to take them.
It doesn't look like there's any questions at this time. Angelica, I really like this form, so I don't know what you'll hear from the others, but it certainly is helpful to me. So,
Okay.
Yeah, she wanted to do something different.
Right.
yeah,
And,
well, I like it.
I like
Okay.
it too.
I don't know what the accountants think about it.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah, and you still have the long form if you need it, so that's good.
Yeah. The final presentation I have tonight is an add-on. The Clerk of Municipal Court wants to do a one-time bonus for an employee, and Mr. Reggie Thompson is here to present on behalf of the Municipal Court Clerk.
Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Reginald Thompson. Ms. Vivian Bishop couldn't be here tonight due to a previous obligation that was already on her calendar. But what we are asking tonight for is the Clerk of Municipal Court has had a salary savings this fiscal year, and we are asking for a bonus for an exempt employee, Priscilla Jacobs Harris. Ms. Harris is the court coordinator. She's gone above and beyond. One thing about Ms. Harris is that she stays late. She puts in the extra hours to do what she needs to do. And she also signs warrants after hours. And what Ms. Bishop is asking, you all the counselors, is that this is a one-time act for the amount of $1,059. Thank you for your time. Are there any questions for me?
We have a question for the Mayor Pro Tem.
Not of you, I just want the city attorney to explain why they have to come to us and ask.
There you go.
All right, thank you. The local legislation that creates a municipal court says that any of the salaries, compensation has to be approved by Columbus Council. That would include any adjustments or increases. That goes for the marshal's office, the clerk as well. So that's why they're here making the request.
All right. Okay. We've got a motion second for approval. Any discussion? Since it's an add-on, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor, please state aye. Those opposed? Okay, if you would, Madam Clerk.
Those in favor? 1, 2, 3. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
So let's do it again. Those in favor is 1, 2, 3, and those opposed, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's inconclusive.
Yeah, inconclusive. All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
I also want to ask the city manager, or ask the city attorney, and maybe HR, didn't some new legislations come down as it relates to salary employees and overtime?
It did. I don't know that it's effective yet. December 1st
Okay.
is the effective date.
So it will impact them next year.
I think, well, and we'll come back to you with some information, but if you earn $47,000 thereabout, then those persons would be exempt. And so we'll update you on it, but it's December this year is when it becomes effective.
And if they don't earn that much but their salary, then they won't be exempt.
Yeah, if they earn less than the $47,000,
And hers is
they would be
less.
eligible for overtime. But if they earn $47,000 or more, then they would not
Okay.
receive overtime.
Right. It's redefined basically what exempt means.
Yes.
And there's a lot of ins and outs, and let's get briefed on it, because it's a lot of different moving parts.
Yes.
As with most federal regulations. Mr. City Attorney?
That's all we were going to say. There are a lot of moving parts, and it may affect job descriptions for different folks, but if people hit that threshold of 47, basically, the exemption's going to apply, and no overtime.
All right. All right. Does that, Mr. City Manager?
So it's inconclusive, so it's not approved.
Okay. All right. Thank y'all for your time.
That concludes my agenda, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. All right, and now we'll move into the clerk's agenda. Ms. Washington.
Madam Mayor and Council, on the clerk's agenda, we have 3 items of information for the council. The first 2 are biographical sketches. The first is biographical sketch of Mr. Brian Abeda. This is Councilor Allen's nominee for the Columbus Aquatic Center. And also, we have a biographical sketch of Mr. Michael D. Smith, who is interested in serving on the Aquatic Center as well. We've got a temporary street closing application for Knob Avenue for the Habitat for Human Habitat dedication. Have resolutions excusing councilors from our last meeting. I need a motion to excuse Councilors Barnes and Davis.
We've got a motion and second to approve items 4 and 5. All those in favor, please state aye.
We have 2 letters of resignation, the first being from Ms. Tanya Nelson Huff.
We move that the resignation be accepted with regrets. All those 6 and 7. All those in favor, please state aye.
Minutes of various boards can be received.
Got a motion and second that the minutes be received. All those in favor, please state aye.
On our board appointments, on our Civic Center Advisory Board, we have these district seats. Mr. Walter Lewis represents District 1, is not eligible. District 7, Mr. Jim Irving, and District 9, Richard Grantham. We need a nominee for each of these seats. I've outlined the 7 seats for our new Columbus Aquatic Center. Councilors can begin making nominations for this board.
Okay, we have Councilor Davis.
Nominate Brian Abeda and Steve Swinehart.
Okay. Are there any others?
Let's see, we have Councilor Garrett
Nominate Brandon Wallace.
and Councilor Thomas.
I have a question, Mayor. One of these is designated as the Hurricanes representative. Have we contacted them, or, as I recall, we did not say that it should be the president of the Hurricanes or anything, it just said a representative. Do I recall that correctly?
That is correct, Councilor Thomas.
Have we done any contact with them?
We did send out an email to those individuals requesting bios if they were interested in serving. I don't believe we heard anything back from them yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilor Huff.
Yes, earlier I had called in to nominate Stephanie Verdry, so we're checking on that now because we think she's out of county, and if she is, I'll bring another name back next week.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay.
thank you.
All right.
Then on our Columbus Golf Course Authority, I'm going to ask that we delay this for another week until we have a full council. On our Circle Commission, we still need someone for Mr. Pedro Augusto's seat, which was declared vacant several months ago. Community Development Advisory Council, Councilor Davis, Mr. Jack Hayes is not eligible. We need another nominee from you, as well as for District 9, Mr. Colin Martin does not want to serve again. On our Keep Columbus Beautiful Commission, we've outlined these seats that will be expiring the end of the month. We received recommendations from our commission.
I'm sorry, Counselor Huff?
Now, I wanted to know if this was the appropriate time for the ones that Keep Columbus Beautiful sent for us to nominate John DeLeo
Yes,
for that seat for Sue DeLeo.
Do you want to recommend all of them that have been recommended by you?
Yes.
Okay.
And Katie Franklin for Cleo Griswold.
And the Mayor
And there's
Pro
another
Tem has asked that all that are eligible to succeed themselves be
Renominated.
serve.
Okay.
if they're
We also
interested.
have, Karen Henderson and...
Oh, your mic's not on. There you go.
Okay, Karen Henderson and who would they have here on 9?
Right, I have that
Chris
count.
Is that Consoletti?
Right, William Consoletti, Chris Consoletti, I'm sorry.
Okay, okay. I just want to mention the names, but just like the mayor said, want to recommend all the ones that, want to nominate all the ones that were recommended.
Okay. We will bring these back at our next meeting for confirmation. And on our Recreation Advisory Board, Councilor Woodson is still working, trying very hard to get a replacement for her District 7 seat. And that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Okay. That concludes our business agenda. We have requested an executive session on matters of personnel and litigation. Let's see, Councilor Davis.
Madam Mayor, if I may, Mr. City Manager, if you would have the Deputy City Manager look into, or if you would look into, I received an email today. Evidently, there was a petition that went out dealing with the Lake Oliver Marina. Evidently, there was a petition that went out that a number of boat owners that use our marina have requested non-ethanol gasoline or engine fuel. And the reason behind that, evidently, they're having a lot of problems with their motors, with the ethanol, the corn, I guess the corn additive in it, that it causes issues with outboard motors. That's their concern, but I received an email today that they've asked, evidently there was a petition that circulated and sent in. I don't know what it became of it or where it's at, but I do know it's a concern, and I'm not sure if I've talked to the Deputy City Manager or not about it, which I believe we have talked about it in the past, and I just received another notification today.
Well, let me look into it. I'm not aware of the petition, but I'll have Deputy City Manager Lisa Goodwin to follow up, and we'll respond back to you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. So we have a request for executive session on matters of personnel and litigation. Is there a motion? We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please state aye. Great, please clear the chambers. Thank you. All right, we have just exited our executive session, which was on matters of personnel as well as litigation. That concludes our agenda for this evening. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. And a second. All those in favor, please state aye. Aye. All right. That concludes our meeting. We'll see you next time.